I was 23 years old when my parents destroyed my life, and I didn't even see it coming. It started on a Tuesday evening in March. I'd just gotten home from my shift at the hospital. I was in my second year of nursing school, working part-time to help cover tuition, when I found my parents sitting at the kitchen table with expressions I'd never seen before. Not quite guilt, not quite determination. Something in between that made my stomach drop. "Sweetheart, sit down," Mom said, gesturing to the chair across from them. "We need to talk." My sister Vanessa's baby, 6-month-old Lily, was sleeping in the playpen in the corner. Vanessa had dropped her off that morning, saying she had a job interview. That was 3 days ago. The interview kept getting extended, and I'd been the one feeding Lily, changing her, staying up through the night when she cried. Not that I minded, really. Lily was adorable, with her cherub cheeks and wispy blonde hair. But I had exams coming up, and I was running on maybe 4 hours of sleep. According to YouTube analytics, 99% of viewers are not subscribed. That's a huge number. By subscribing the channel that is completely free, you'll help support the channel and never miss fresh content. "Where's Vanessa?" I asked, settling into the chair. "She was supposed to pick up Lily hours ago." Dad cleared his throat, not meeting my eyes. "That's what we need to discuss. Your mother and I have made a decision, a big one." Mom reached across the table and grabbed my hand. Hers was cold. "Marcus, you know we've always dreamed of retiring abroad. Portugal, remember? The villa we looked at last year?" My blood went cold. "You're not?" "We found the perfect place," Dad interrupted, his voice taking on that forced enthusiasm he used when he knew he was about to disappoint me. "Right on the coast. We can move in by the end of the month." "End of the month?" I looked between them, waiting for the punchline. "That's 2 weeks away. What about—" I gestured around the house, at everything, at me. "You're an adult now, Marcus," Mom said gently, as if that softened anything. "You can take care of yourself. This house is paid off. We're signing it over to you." For a moment, I thought maybe it wouldn't be so bad. Then I looked at Lily, sleeping peacefully in her playpen, and something crystallized in my mind. What about Vanessa's baby? The silence that followed told me everything I needed to know. "Vanessa is going through a difficult time," Mom began, using the same tone she'd used when my sister had dropped out of college, when she'd gotten arrested for shoplifting, when she'd shown up pregnant with no idea who the father was. "She's not ready to be a mother right now. She needs time to find herself." "Find herself?" I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Where is she?" Dad finally looked at me. "She's already gone, son. Left for California yesterday. She's staying with some friends, trying to get her life together." "And the baby?" Mom squeezed my hand tighter. "You're so good with Lily. You've always been the responsible one, the caring one. We know this is a lot to ask." "Ask?" The word came out sharp. "You're not asking. You're telling me that you're abandoning me with a baby that isn't mine so you can live out your retirement fantasy while my sister runs away from her responsibilities." "Don't be dramatic," Dad said, his voice hardening. "We're not abandoning you. We're giving you a house, rent-free. We'll send money for Lily's expenses. And it's not forever, just until Vanessa gets back on her feet." "How long?" They exchanged a glance. "A year," Mom said quietly. "Maybe 2. 2 years?" I stood up so fast my chair screeched against the floor. "I'm in nursing school. I work nights. I have a life." "And now you have a niece who needs you," Mom said. And there it was. The guilt trip, the manipulation, the same thing they'd been doing my entire childhood. Marcus will understand. Marcus will help. Marcus won't complain, because Vanessa was the wild one, the one who needed saving, and I was the reliable one, the one who could handle anything, never mind what I wanted, never mind my dreams. "This isn't fair," I whispered. "Life isn't fair," Dad said, standing up, "but family takes care of family. That's what we do." 2 weeks later, I stood in the empty house, my house now, though it felt more like a prison, watching their taxi disappear down the street. They'd hugged me, kissed Lily, promised to call every week. Mom had cried. Dad had slipped me a check for $5,000, as if money could compensate for stealing my life. Lily started crying the moment they left, as if she knew, as if she understood that the grandmother and grandfather who'd cooed over her were abandoning her just like her mother had. I picked her up, bouncing her gently, and felt the weight of my new reality settle over me like a burial shroud. The first month was hell. I had to drop two of my classes because I couldn't find childcare that worked with my schedule. The ones I kept, I was barely passing. I'd show up to lectures with spit up on my shoulder and dark circles under my eyes. My professors were sympathetic, but firm. This was nursing school, not a daycare. My girlfriend, Amy, lasted 3 weeks before she sat me down and said, "I can't do this, Marcus. I'm 22. I'm not ready to play house with someone else's baby." I wanted to argue, to tell her I wasn't ready either, that this wasn't my choice. But I was too tired, and she was already halfway out the door. My parents called once a week, like clockwork. Mom would gush about the Portuguese sunsets, the local markets, the villa's garden. Dad would ask how Lily was doing, but never how I was doing. They'd transfer money, enough for diapers and formula, but not enough for me to hire real help. Vanessa didn't call at all. I tried to reach her, left dozens of messages. Her phone was disconnected after the first month. Her friends in California claimed they hadn't seen her in weeks. She'd vanished, leaving me holding the bag, or in this case, the baby. By month 3, I'd withdrawn from nursing school entirely. There was no point in pretending I could finish. I took a full-time job at a grocery store during the day and stocked shelves at a warehouse 3 nights a week. A neighbor, Mrs. Chen, an elderly woman who'd known me since I was a kid, agreed to watch Lily while I worked. She charged almost nothing, bless her, but I could see the pity in her eyes every time I dropped off the baby. I was 23 years old, and I'd become a single parent to a child that wasn't mine, while the people responsible for her existence were living their best lives thousands of miles away. That's when the bitterness started to set in. It crystallized one night when I was up at 2 a.m. with Lily, who'd been screaming for an hour with what the doctor said was an ear infection. I was rocking her, tears streaming down my face, hers from pain, mine from exhaustion and rage, when my phone lit up with a notification. Facebook. My mother had posted photos from Portugal. I clicked on them with my free hand, each image a knife to the gut. Mom and Dad on the beach, holding drinks with little umbrellas. Mom at a street festival, laughing with new friends. Dad on a boat, the sun setting behind him, looking 20 years younger than he had when they left. The most recent post was from that evening. Living our best life. So grateful for this new chapter. Blessed retirement. Goals. Tbitstir Portugal. Living. I stared at that hashtag. Blessed. While my niece screamed in my arms and my dreams rotted away. And something inside me snapped. They were blessed? They were grateful? They'd thrown me away like garbage, dumped their responsibilities on me, and now they were bragging about it online. And Vanessa? God, I didn't know where Vanessa was, if she was even alive. But I knew she wasn't suffering like I was. That's when I decided this wasn't going to stand. I didn't know how yet, but I was going to make them understand what they'd done to me. I was going to make them pay. But life, I was about to learn, had its own plans for justice. The first crack appeared 6 months after they'd left. Dad called, and for once, he didn't sound cheerful. "Marcus, I need to talk to you about something." "What?" I was feeding Lily, trying to keep her from flinging pureed carrots across the kitchen. "There's been an issue with the pension, some kind of administrative error. They're saying I wasn't vested in the full amount, that there was a miscalculation. Okay?" I had no sympathy to spare. "We're going to have to cut back on what we're sending you, just for a few months, until this gets sorted out." I laughed, actually laughed. "Cut back? Dad, what you're sending barely covers diapers and formula. If you cut back, I'll be—" "We're in a tight spot too," he snapped. "This villa costs more than we expected. Property taxes here are insane. We're all making sacrifices." "Right," I said. "Sacrifices. Must be really hard, living in paradise." He sighed. "Don't be like that. We'll figure it out. Family helps." Family. He hung up before I could remind him that I'd been helping family for 6 months while they'd been helping themselves. The money got cut in half. Then, 2 months later, it stopped entirely. When I called, Mom answered, crying. "The pension fund collapsed," she sobbed. "Some kind of fraud. They're investigating, but our money is just gone. Your father's entire retirement, everything we invested." "What about the house sale money?" They'd sold their business and several rental properties before leaving. "Gone into the villa. We can't sell it now. The market crashed here. We'd lose everything. Marcus, we're barely getting by. We can't—" We can't help with Lily anymore. I hung up without saying goodbye. I should have felt victorious. This was karma, wasn't it? They were suffering, but I was still trapped, still drowning, and their suffering didn't ease mine at all. Then things got worse for them. Much worse. Mom fell ill 3 months later. She didn't tell me for weeks, not until Dad called from a Portuguese hospital, his voice shaking. "It's cancer," he said. "Stage 3, pancreatic. The doctors here are good, but—" His voice cracked. "The treatment is expensive. Our insurance doesn't cover everything. And with the pension gone—" "I'm sorry," I said, and I meant it. I was angry, but I wasn't a monster. "I hope she'll be okay. Can you—" He stopped, started again. "Can you send money? Anything? We're drowning here, Marcus." The irony was so thick I could taste it. "Dad, I'm working 2 jobs to support a baby you left me with. I had to give up nursing school. I have nothing. Less than nothing. Please," he begged. "She's your mother. And Lily is your granddaughter. But that didn't stop you from abandoning her." This time, he was the one who hung up first. I told myself I felt nothing, that I was glad they were suffering. But late at night, feeding Lily her bottle, I'd think about my mom, who'd sung me lullabies when I was little, who taught me to bake cookies, who cheered the loudest at my high school graduation. And I'd feel the tears come. This wasn't the revenge I'd wanted. I'd wanted them to understand, to apologize, to come back and make things right. Not this. Never this. Mom survived the cancer, but barely. The treatment wiped out what little savings they had left. They had to sell jewelry, furniture, anything valuable. Dad took a job at a local cafe, working at 70 years old for minimum wage. And then Vanessa came back. She showed up at my door on a Tuesday, almost exactly 2 years after my parents had left. She looked different. Thinner, harder, with lines around her eyes that hadn't been there before. But she was clean, sober. And when she saw Lily, now a toddler, walking and babbling, she burst into tears. "I'm so sorry," she sobbed. "I'm so, so sorry. I was a mess, Marcus. I was using. I was lost. I was—" She couldn't finish. "I've been clean for 8 months. I have a job, an apartment. I'm ready now. I'm ready to be her mom." I should have slammed the door in her face, should have told her it was too late, that she'd lost her chance. But Lily toddled over, curious, and said, "Who dat?" "That's your mama," I said quietly, and watched my sister fall apart. The transition took months. I wasn't going to just hand Lily over to someone who'd abandoned her, no matter what she said. But Vanessa showed up every day. She took parenting classes. She went to therapy. She proved herself inch by painful inch. And eventually, I had to admit she'd changed. "I heard about Mom and Dad," she said one day while we were watching Lily play in the park. "Dad called me, asked me to ask you for money." "What did you tell him?" "That he had some nerve, asking you for anything after what they did." She looked at me, really looked at me. "What they all did. I'm including myself in that. Marcus, I stole 2 years of your life. I can never pay that back." "No," I agreed. "You can't. But I'm trying, and I'm taking Lily back. You deserve your life back." When Vanessa finally took Lily home to her apartment, I stood in my empty house, the same house where this had all started, and didn't know what to feel. Relief? Loss? Both? I enrolled back in nursing school that fall. I was 25 now, 2 years behind where I should have been, but I was determined to finish. My parents stayed in Portugal. Mom recovered, slowly, but they were broke. The villa they'd bought for their dream retirement became an albatross. They couldn't afford to maintain it or sell it. They were trapped in paradise, living in poverty, while their Portuguese dreams crumbled around them. Dad called me once, about a year after Vanessa took Lily back. "We want to come home," he said quietly. "We made a mistake, a terrible mistake." "You can't," I told him. "You sold everything to move there. There's nothing here for you. You're there. You're our son." "I'm the son you abandoned when it was convenient," I said, "when you had money and dreams and wanted to be blessed. Now that it's hard, now that you need help, you remember I exist?" "That's not fair." "Fair?" I laughed, bitter and hard. "You want to talk about fair? I gave up everything because you and Vanessa were too selfish to deal with your own responsibilities. I lost my girlfriend, my education, my 20s. And now you want to come back and what? Have me take care of you too? Marcus, please. You made your choice, I said. Live with it, like I've had to live with mine. I hung up and blocked their numbers. Was I being cruel? Maybe. But I'd learned something in those 2 years of hell. I wasn't responsible for everyone else's mistakes. I wasn't the family fixer, the reliable one who sacrificed everything while everyone else did what they wanted. I graduated from nursing school 2 years later, got a job at a good hospital, started dating again, a woman named Jennifer, who knew my whole story and didn't run. Vanessa and I rebuilt our relationship slowly, carefully. She was a good mom now, and Lily was thriving. My parents stayed in Portugal, struggling, aging, alone with their regrets. Mom sent me letters sometimes, long, rambling apologies that I read but never answered. Dad stopped trying to contact me entirely. Sometimes people asked if I felt guilty, if I thought about forgiving them. The answer was complicated. I didn't feel the burning rage anymore, that white-hot fury that had consumed me during those first months. But forgiveness? That was a bridge too far. They'd stolen irreplaceable years from me, abandoned a baby, and only cared when their paradise turned into a nightmare. Karma hadn't needed me at all. It had done its work perfectly, teaching them the exact lesson they'd needed to learn. Actions have consequences, and sometimes those consequences follow you to the most beautiful places on earth and make them feel like prisons. I heard through a family friend that Dad had a stroke last year, that Mom was taking care of him now, in that villa they couldn't sell, with money they didn't have, thousands of miles away from anyone who might help. Part of me, a small part, felt sorry for them, but a larger part remembered being 23, holding a screaming baby that wasn't mine, watching my dreams disappear while they posted "Now I'm blessed" on social media. They'd wanted to live their best life, consequences be damned. Now they were living with those consequences instead. And me, I was finally, after all these years, living mine. I saw Vanessa and Lily every week. Lily called me Uncle Marcus and would run to me with sticky hands and gap-toothed smiles. She didn't remember the hard times, the nights I'd walk the floor with her, the sacrifices. She just knew I loved her, and she loved me back. That was enough. It had to be. On my 30th birthday, Jennifer surprised me with a trip. "Anywhere you want to go," she said. "You've earned it." I thought about it for a long time. I could have said Portugal, could have gone to confront my parents, to see what had become of them. But why? What would it accomplish? "Japan," I said instead. "I've always wanted to see the cherry blossoms." We went in the spring, and it was beautiful. Every moment was ours, untainted by obligation or resentment or the weight of other people's choices. I stood under those cherry trees, Jennifer's hand in mine, and thought about karma, about justice, about revenge. I'd spent so long wanting to make them pay, wanting them to understand what they'd done to me. And in the end, life had done it for me. Not in the dramatic, satisfying way I'd imagined back when I was drowning in anger and diapers, but in a slower, more thorough way that left them with exactly what they'd earned. Nothing but each other and their regrets. Was it enough? Would anything ever be enough to balance those 2 stolen years? I didn't know. But standing there, watching the petals fall like snow, I realized something. I didn't need it to be. I didn't need revenge or apologies or even acknowledgement. I just needed to be free of them. And finally, I was. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I ignored it at first, but Jennifer nudged me. "Check it. Could be important." It was an email from a lawyer in Portugal. My father had passed away, the stroke complications finally catching up with him. There would be no inheritance. The debts exceeded any assets. But there was a letter he'd written, if I wanted it. I stood there for a long moment, the cherry blossoms falling around me, and thought about reading my father's final words, his last apology, his last explanation. Then I deleted the email without reading further. Some stories didn't need endings. Some apologies came too late to matter. I turned to Jennifer, took her hand, and said, "Come on, let's go see the temples." Behind me in Portugal, my mother would be alone now, living with the choices she'd made, the son she'd lost, the paradise that had turned to ashes in her hands. And ahead of me was cherry blossoms and temples and a woman who loved me and a life I'd clawed back from the wreckage they'd made. Karma didn't always roar. Sometimes it whispered. Sometimes it just let people live with what they'd done until the weight of it crushed them. And sometimes the best revenge was simply living well, moving on, and never looking back. I chose the cherry blossoms. I chose Japan. I chose myself. And I never regretted it for a single moment.